Hello, everybody. As usual, I hope you're doing great. I, for one, am excited to talk about this particular question and answer with Ra because it goes into the essence of my own life and my own teaching. And I actually, as I prepare this, I wonder why didn't I select this question before in this series, because this is at the heart of what my life is, like I said. So you must know at this point, if you know anything about the raw material, that the law of one is a teaching or a central knowledge of unity consciousness, meaning that what we see, what we perceive as a universe is one, and that one is ourselves. So the purpose of teaching the law of one, or of non-duality, or mysticism in general, is to become aware of that unity. And that unity, of course, starts from within, not from without. So the disciplines of the personality for me are so specific within the raw material, which covers a lot of material and different interests of topics and so on. But the disciplines of the personality to me sum up precisely what this path is. And this is in direct correlation, beautiful correlation, with all the mystic traditions that go straight to the knowledge of self as the essence of reality. So I'm going to cover this, and I feel like I can talk about this in several videos, but this is what I have today, and I want to make it as simple as possible and as relatable as possible as well. So as you know, I'm going to just read the question and answer. I'm actually going to cover two questions and answers, just because the first one begins the preparation for the other one. So here, Don is asking, the disciplines of the personality I see as the paramount work of any who have become consciously aware of the process of evolution. Am I correct in that statement? And Ra says, quite. Then Don says, now what I'm trying to get at is how these disciplines affect the energy centers and the power, shall I say, of the white magician. Will you tell me how that works? Now, I want to confess something. The language that sometimes is used in Western mysticism or occultism, occult practices, to me is not very resonant. This is obviously nothing against it, because there is this phrase of white magician and, doing ritual work. It may be my bias and my preference, but I prefer something that is a lot more simple, a language that doesn't require, the presence of esoteric and kind of complex language. Unless it's the complexity, of course, that is needed sometimes to explain things, which has nothing to do with the vocabulary itself, but with the nuance that we want to get into. And that's why I appreciate the raw material. However, this is the language that we're using here because Don was, of course, interested in the language and the practices. He knew about the Western occult practices. But I'm saying all of this because I want to just translate this. The white magician simply means the seeker of truth. That's it. A white magician is anybody who is a seeker of truth, and of course, what seems to happen is magic. In my books, the word magic is not as related to self-realization. Magic is actually what we consider to be psychic powers and cities in Buddhism as we know it, and these are not exactly the same thing. So I just wanted to clarify that. So again, the white magician is the seeker of truth, and so how does the disciplines of the personality affect the energy centers? And now we have to get into, of course, the energy system to explain a little bit what that means. And in terms of development of the energy centers, it means clearing out the self, clearing out from blockages and allowing life as it is. In practical terms, that means pure acceptance. So now we're dealing with pure acceptance and crystallization of being. How does that work with the disciplines of the personality? Why are the disciplines of the personality so important for this crucial preparation of the self for its transcendence, let's say? So let's see what Ra says. Here, Ra gives the heart of the discipline of the personality, which is threefold. And they say, 1, know yourself. 2, accept yourself. 3, become the creator. The third step is that step which, when accomplished, renders one the most humble servant of all, transparent in personality, and completely able to know and accept other selves. So this is the way I explain and describe this process, because we're starting with the perennial question of who am I, right? And so if I want to know who I am, then I need to know myself. And in this investigation, in the direct path, which is my preferred method of teaching, and the way in which we can clarify everything from direct knowledge, which is really what Zen even, which is, you may know that I have a strong influence by Zen. In Zen, we emphasize direct transmission of knowledge. There's not even a teaching per se. It's just the ability of the teacher to show in direct experience that which the seeker is looking for. And so it always starts, of course, with questions that go into the nature of who it is the one that is asking the question, who is the one that has the problem, and so on. But in the direct path, I consider it to be a step down from Zen. Zen being the closest thing from silence, which is the ultimate teacher. But in the direct path, the first thing we get interested in is, who am I? And so we begin this investigation of the self, and we get into the nature of what we really are, which is awareness. We cannot go beyond awareness. Awareness is the only thing that we know about ourselves to be true. And so that is the first step as we take it in the process of self-realization through the direct path. Now, why is there a second step? Because the mind is the one doing the seeking. And once the mind sinks into its own essence, it needs to accept that. This is the process of deconditioning oneself. So acceptance of self simply means, once you know who you are, know yourself in experience. That is to accept who you are. Now it's interesting because the mind will try to play some tricks, namely because of the separate self or the ego. And it's going to bring all these conditionings to say, but we are this, we are that, and we have to do this, and we have to do that, and all of these old conditionings. Acceptance is the longest process only because there are conditionings in the mind. However, it's a second step. Once you're able to accept yourself, and this is a continuous process, the third step, which is becoming the creator, is automatic. So I would say that the biggest thing, of course, is accepting oneself. Knowing who you are is the simplest thing you can do. You only investigate into the nature of who you are, or what it is that I refers to. Once you get there, you understand that, but you have to put it into direct contrast with what the mind has been identifying you with, which is, of course, all the thoughts and ideas and images of ourselves. Now, the third step, once it is accomplished, renders one the most humble servant of all, transparent in personality, and completely able to know and accept other selves. So we always say that, of course, we first need to know ourselves to get to know other people. To know the essence of other people, of course, is to know the essence of who we are. Because that which I am, awareness, is actually the place, if we can call it a place, the substance from which everything, or in which everything appears. Nothing is outside of awareness, and at the same time out of which everything is made out of. In other words, everything you know is because you're aware of it. So knowledge and awareness are the same thing in this context. Knowing is the same thing as awareness. And everything you know, it's obviously made out of awareness. So everybody is made out of awareness. And it so happens that everybody has the same experience. When we ask ourselves, we find that everybody has the same experience. We are made out of the same substance. And that substance is pure knowing. Not knowledge, intellectual knowledge, but just pure knowing. And so, to me, this is very dear, this last part, when they say that one becomes the most humble servant of all because you become transparent in personality. And they'll talk something else about personality, which I want to emphasize. But this is the capacity that we develop to be able to accept, know and accept other selves, other people. There is nothing that the mind can do to know and accept other people, because it will always be skewed. It would be biased towards its own preferences. Whereas pure awareness, the creator itself, does not have any preference. It loves and nourishes all things, like the Tao Te Ching says. So let's read the next paragraph. Here Ra says, in relation to the pursuit of the magical working, the continuing discipline of the personality involves the adept in knowing itself, accepting itself, and thus clearing the path towards the great indigo gateway to the creator. To become the creator is to become all that there is. There is, then, no personality in the sense with which the adept begins its learned teaching. As the consciousness of the indigo ray becomes more crystalline, more work may be done, more may be expressed from intelligent infinity. So Ra is giving, first, is catering to Dawn's desire to know the magical personality, or the magical self. I forgot, the white magician. And also by the energy system. That's why they say, in relation to the pursuit of the magical working, then the disciplines of the personality, which involves, of course, the knowing, accepting, and pay attention to the fact that they don't say becoming the creator. I always say that this becoming the creator is a byproduct, is a result, a product of simply knowing and accepting yourself. Because knowledge of self is an investigation that we do. Acceptance is something that needs to happen, otherwise we begin to live in cognitive dissonance. And we all do. Once we know ourselves, we cannot continue to lie to our mind. Our mind cannot continue to lie about reality. Everything becomes clear. It is just a process of purification. We know this in all traditions. Even, of course, in the direct path. The direct path is no exception to purification of skandhas, for example, as we call them in Buddhism, which is just mental formations and things that constrict reality to a specific definition. That's a topic for another video, but the point is that here, this purification needs to happen, and that is the accepting of self. That creates the clearing path towards the great indigo gateway. Now, for you, some of you who may not know what this indigo ray talks about, there is an energy system, which is a good way to explain how experience flows through and how it can get stuck in these energy knots or chakras. Clearing the chakras means that there is no interference. And so if you look at the energy system, it starts at the bottom with the red and it ends effectively in indigo ray. experience ends there, because the violet ray is not really something that we can perceive as part of it. We cannot do anything to balance it or block it. It simply is as it is. So clearing everything to the indigo ray is the work that is done in self-seeking. And the process is knowing yourself and accepting yourself. I always wish not to get too deep into the complicated systems and again, the vocabulary that is not needed for this to be implemented in our lives. And that's why I am a lover of simplicity and yet efficiency. The two go hand in hand in this path. So once this is done, once we clear these energy systems, which again has to do with blockages, and those blockages have to do with not being able to accept yourself, period. If you don't accept the way you are, if you don't accept what it is, then you have blockages. As you clear this, what happens is that there is no personality in the sense with which the adept begins its learned teaching. This makes all the sense in the world, because I begin my seeking as a separate self. In other words, it is the ego that finds the spiritual path and says, I need to get rid of myself, in essence. It doesn't say it this way, but it feels that way. Or that is exactly what's happening. And so that personality is no longer there. That personality, that image of ourselves, that reflection of our individuality is no longer there. And so as the consciousness of the indigo ray becomes more crystalline, meaning that there is more seeing through the indigo ray. This is again in the energy system, just seeing without duality, seeing without polarity. Again, the indigo ray is characterized by unifying everything. It is the third eye, as some cultures call it. And that third eye, of course, sees only one thing, oneness. So, as the consciousness of the indigo ray, which is, again, a perception of unity, becomes more crystalline, then more work may be done. Which is to say that intelligent infinity will express itself without effort through you, through this instrument or this vehicle, whatever you want to call it. So that is the explanation of the disciplines of the personality and how this works. To give you a summary of how we do this in the direct path, the first step that we take is an investigation, an honest and clear investigation of our direct experience. Our direct experience tells us that we are something. That something is made out of an apparent body and mind. So we investigate that. We take a hard look at what the body and the mind is. And as we begin to explore it, we see that there is an awareness of the body and the mind, which means I am perceiving the body, I am perceiving the mind. So I cannot be the body and the mind. Anything then attached to body and mind does not belong to me, or at least it's not, I am not dependent upon them. Well, that's great, because as we sink down into this knowledge that I am aware, it so happens that I don't have awareness, I am awareness. Because there is no distinction in our direct experience between I, what I call self, and awareness. So awareness is what is present, the only thing present in body and mind. And awareness is permanent, is unmovable, imperturbable. This is something that we find as we get deeper and deeper, more intimately interested in the qualities of awareness. So as we do this, we begin to see that, so the body and the mind are actually made out of awareness. And the world, which I know, is made out of awareness. This is the perception of unity, and I'm probably not doing the best job, but it's the best that I can do in this particular video. But that is the vision of unity. is to know this, not as a concept, not as an intellectual understanding, but to live it. And to live it, you have to see what are the excuses, what are the things that your mind is telling you otherwise. That is not this, because this is your true experience. There is nothing magical, esoteric, metaphysical here, or even spiritual. This is true knowing, pure knowing. It is understanding reality as it is. It so happens that to our mind, this looks magical because the mind thinks that things are separate, that things are divided, that things are in conflict. It may think this way. So you can see the rewiring process that happens once you let the mind be informed by truth, because truth is what we're interested here. I said at the beginning, we are a seeker of truths. Call them white magicians, call them spiritual seekers, it doesn't matter. We are seekers of truth. We don't want to live in a mind of lies. And that is what happens as we continue to do the discipline of the personality, which is simple. Know yourself, remember who you are, and allow that to be the guiding force of what defines your reality. Your world will always change. Before I say goodbye, I want to say that this is very dear to me, like I said at the beginning, because this is my life. This is what transformed my life, and everything that I see, everything that I perceive, and that I learned in the past now makes total sense from this point of view. It's not even about confirmation of the intellect, but rather to be able to live this harmony, to see how old conditions are no longer, and I mean things that used to define me, but in some sense they would cause some sort of disturbance or dissatisfaction, and they are no longer present. This is what I would definitely call magic. The changes that happen only by abiding in the one knowledge of who you are, not needing anything else. So I love that Ra gave us this in the raw material, which again, I have to admit, even though I love the material, is filled with too much information that can confuse the mind. And to me, that is something that is not in my interest to put in the list of things to do and things to learn and so on. There's only one thing that is important, and that is the knowledge of self. As you know, of course, this is what I'm dedicated to, and if you're interested, in the description you can always find not only my course in the direct path, which a lot of people have taken and they have been having the best results, especially people, I have to say, people who have been seeking to a certain degree, and they feel frustrated and they feel like they want something that is tangible, no more of this conceptual satisfaction of the mind, but rather they want to touch with the heart of themselves. And if you're even further interested in Instagram, you can contact me and we can chat about the options that I have for mentoring, which is what I love doing, because now I can directly work one-on-one with you. All of that in the description. Go check it out. I have nothing else to say, but thank you for being interested in this particular path, and also in the Law of One, which is something that has transformed our lives to a lot of us. And I love to bring this knowledge, specific knowledge of the Law of One, which is the knowledge of self, into our lives, which is living the Law of One. Have a good day or good night, whatever you are, and I'll see you in the next video.